When we talk South African radio legends, the name John Berks comes out among the top ones. Some call him a pioneer of talk radio who made his listeners' mornings unique with prank calls and quick wits. Let's take a listen.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Botha.
Yes.
Is that Mr. Pick Botha?
Yes.
Yes, sir. It's Peter and Love. I'm calling from Dobsonville in Soweto.
From where? I hear you very badly.
From Dobsonville in Soweto.
Oh, Dobsonville, yes.
In Soweto.
Yeah.
In Soweto, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I wonder, I'm the chairman of the ANC Youth Club in Soweto. And now that you're about to join the party, the youth needs to understand more of the Afrikaans culture, sir. Like, you know, the food and the other points of the culture from the Afrikaans people. Would you be prepared to make a speech for us, sir?
Yes, in principle, but I'm asking you for some understanding. I'm going through a very difficult period now.
Yes.
With a lot of appointments for the next 3-4 months. I was going to Cape Town.
This will be at the clubs in Dobsonville. We'll come and fetch you, sir. But the people, they very much want you, Pick Botha, to do the cooking to show us. You see.
But do you have a pot there?
This we can get. What size pot you want, sir?
Well, it depends on how many people.
About 100, between 80 and 100 people.
Well, then we need at least 3 number 10 pots.
I just want to write this down, sir. Sir, I've got the 3 pots. My friend tell me we can get the sponsor for that one, sir.
Yeah, what about the pub?
The pub too. Don't worry, sir. We'll bring the pub.
We need nice pub, man.
Yes, sir. The yellow one, sir.
What? No, the white one is all right.
Yeah, I don't want to mix the colors, sir. We also want to get Cyril Ramaphosa to be with you when you cook the poiki. Cyril Ramaphosa can cook the trout.
Yes.
Yes.
I want him to do that. I can't.
Yes, but he can. He knows.
Oh, hell, then I want him to be there, please.
I'm going to ask Cyril Ramaphosa, sir.
Right.
You don't mind?
No, I know him well. He's my friend.
Is your friend, Joe?
Yes.
Cyril, I will call him. You can do the poichi. Which are you going to do the meat? Nyama?
Yeah. I use kudu and lamb.
Kudu and the lamb.
About half an hour before we eat, you can put in the cabbage. Then you've got food.
It sounds delicious, sir.
Then you've got food.
Mr. Botha, Pick, this is John Berks.
Yeah.
Pick, this is John Berks.
Yes. Good heavens.
Pick, you've been on my morning show on Radio 702.
What is this now, man?
Now, Pick, this is John Berks.
Yeah, I can hear him.
You've been on my radio program, Pick.
Good heavens. Good heavens.
Now, it's been a year since Long John, as he was affectionately known to many, passed away at the age of 80. Today, we walk down the memory lane with his son, Lance Berks, who is joining us live from Boston in the U.S. A very good morning, Lance. Firstly, you cannot help but laugh at the unassuming Pick Botha not realizing that was a prank and still wanting to know what's going on. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning?
Very well, thanks, Lance.
Great.
Lance, talk to me about... Okay, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that was one of the many prank calls that he did.
I like that, Lance. Let's talk about just the hearts of many across South Africa and the continent at large, in fact, that your dad touched with his brand of radio. What do you remember?
Well, for my dad, prank calls were you got a lot of these shop DJs today that do these prank calls, but for my dad, it was about the character, and he would almost transform himself into this character, and the character became the person that conducted the prank call. So when he called up someone, he would think of a character, and he'd use that character and everything about that character. He'd embody himself into that individual, and he would conduct the call, with that character, whether it was, an Indian character, a German character, and he transformed himself into that character, and he just had a certain wit about him, where he really was able to read the caller in a way that really entertained the audience.
And that's exactly it, right, Lance? When you know that the prank has landed, when the subject does not even catch on and cannot call you out on it.
Absolutely, that's exactly right. For my dad, it was always radio was theater of the mind, right? You could use your voice to paint the picture. I can sit here on TV and your imagination is the screen, but when you're on radio, you can use your voice to paint the picture. You can tell someone how big the mountain is. You can describe the cloud formation falling off the top of the mountain, right? You can't do that with television, as my dad would always say. As we sit here, your imagination becomes the screen in front of you.
Yeah, and a lot is lost to the imagination because we are showing you the visuals as we would like you to see them. Let's talk about the legacy, the radio legacy that John Berks has left behind, Lance. We have seen an evolution of radio from broadcasting, from how radio is consumed, present day, right? There are podcasts on many subjects, led conversations across the globe. But I imagine your dad in South Africa, in the context of South African radio in particular, sits somewhere above, just at the top in as far as the cream of the crop is concerned on talk radio.
Yeah, I think my dad was unique. When I love radio, I grew up with a father that was a radio broadcaster, and I always had a fascination myself with radio. And when I look at the likes of, great radio legends in America, from the Howard Sterns, the Larry Kings, Wolfman Jack, my dad was unique in that he was able to be a Wolfman Jack, a Larry King, a Howard Stern. He had a great sense of humor. He had his prank calls, but at the same time, he had an incredible knowledge of music. I mean, he did a fantastic interview with Quincy Jones, and on that interview, at the end of the call, Quincy complimented my dad for his knowledge on the subject, right? So, and then he could shift direction from doing prank calls to rolling the hits, and and then doing talkback.
And as the son, when your dad would come home and tell you these amazing things that had gone on at work, what was your reaction? Can you take us back?
Yeah, I mean, I think as kids, my dad, when my dad would come home, he would often talk about, he would talk more about what he was going to do the next day. His shows weren't, he didn't have, they were very much done at the moment, right? He'd come home and he'd bounce ideas with my sister and I. But he never really spoke much about his day. He wouldn't come home and say he did this fun call or that fun call. It was always about, well, what's he going to do tomorrow, right? But, at home, he was just a regular father. He was a very strict dad. He was deeply rooted in his values. And he'd leave his radio broadcasting at work. And at home, he was a father to my sister and I.
And obviously, Lance, it's been a year since his passing. How have you commemorated this day?
For me, it's, I think life is all about, when you look back in your life, you look at the memories that you've shared. And so my life and who I am today has very much been shaped by my father and everything he taught me. And so for me, it was a day of reflection, thinking about my father. I'm very fortunate that I have all these recordings and shows of his that I can listen to. And I listen to many of his shows way back to, from when he first started out on Radio 702 to, just most recently, some of the interviews that he did on on radio over the years.
And just before I let you go, Lance, obviously you listened to your dad and he was phenomenal in his time. You're in Boston. What's radio like there? What does that sound like?
Well, radio today is definitely not what radio used to be, right? Today it's all about what podcasts and, you know, it's at the click of a button. You can tune in and listen to whatever you want today. I mean, you've got Spotify, Joe Rogan, you have satellite radio in the US. I mean, sometimes I'll tune into Howard Stern in the mornings. I'll listen to a Spotify podcast in the car while I'm driving or if I'm working out. So radio is definitely not what it used to be. I think today anyone can become a radio broadcaster. All you need is a microphone and a computer, and you can go and launch your own podcast, right? I mean, there's a South African boy on TikTok today who's got a news channel with 9.5 million followers.
And that's the nature of how things are in present day, right? The barrier to entry has been decreased somewhat, but you also need to have some talent to stay on the platform. Lance, thank you so much for your time this morning. That was Lance Berks, John Berks' son. Of course, if you were a listener of Radio 702 back in the days, you will remember very well who John Berks was with his very formidable pranks, phone pranks. In fact, we played you a clip earlier, perhaps you've just joined in, where he prank called Pig Porter, asking him to bring the pot. Do you have a pot? And you're going to cook. We're going to ask Cyril Ramaphosa to come and join the party. They were talking about boikikos that Pig Porter was supposedly going to cook at that gathering.